Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshablon, and welcome back to our series on humans. Now, today we are going to be covering kind of how to draw backs. So we're going to be covering them from kind of two angles, our basic kind of straight from the side, and then we're going to be doing a Michelangelo sketch, just to kind of understand how human muscles work. And then maybe another sketch just to kind of understand how different body types can work. But first, before we do that, we're going to run back to our little thing on chest muscles that we did, just so that we can kind of highlight where the back muscles are going to be. So this is the Da Vinci sketch that we worked on just a little while ago. And I'm just going to add a couple of things. So just outlining where some back muscles are going to be. There's going to be a muscle here, just coming from under kind of the shoulder area and arching up. Just this entire bit here is all one muscle. This part up here is going to be a different muscle, more leading into kind of your trapezius muscles, which we've talked about a lot. So that's kind of where those are going to be coming up. So yeah, that's where those are. Going a little bit lower, we have this big muscle right here. Comes up, kind of making a point at the bottom. Kind of your arrowhead shape that you have there. And then in the back over here, I'm just going to quickly highlight where some of these front muscles are going to be on the chest. And in turn, that'll give us the outline of this back muscle here that we want. There we go. There's another one. And then this. Lots of ligaments in here. Those are important to know about. And then going back towards the rear. So that was just those were just some quick things that we're going to be needing to highlight in understanding where our specific back muscles are going to be. So there we go. So that's kind of how we're going to be looking at it from kind of a side view. So if you're making quite a muscular figure from a side view, this might be kind of the outline that you're wanting to pursue with that specific thing. Generally, once it comes back off the neck, it's pretty straight. Generally, if you like put skin and everything on this figure, it'd be going pretty nice and straight all the way down until probably around the shoulder blade area. Then it'll curve back in, and then down kind of in the small of the back. It'll curve back out towards the rear area. So those are kind of just some quick little tips on how you're going to be wanting to draw your back from kind of the sideways direction. Now we're going to go and just start kind of doing backs just from the actual back. So we are going to start by kind of copying a Michelangelo sketch. So this is again going to be for more muscular figures. We're going to do a female figure as well, but yeah, not by the same person. Okay, so starting off, we're just going to kind of start off in the neck area. Neck comes up like this, and we're going to have the head up here. And there we go, there's our neck. With the kind of chin coming off here, and then going forward, we'll have kind of ear around here. There we go. So there's kind of where the neck and head of our figure is going to be. So we're going to just quickly kind of draw the shoulder area to just give us a better understanding of exactly where we are in this drawing. So there we go. There's kind of our right shoulder, and our left shoulder is going to be over here. Just for some context for this Michelangelo image, it is a figure that is throwing a spear, or a javelin, rather, with his left arm. So that's just a little bit of context on the image. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. Getting a little bit of bicep in there. We're not going to go too much farther on that side, and we're not going to go super far on this side, because as I said, we are mostly wanting to just focus on the back, but there is just a little bit of kind of context of where our back is. So there we go. There's kind of the start of our figure. Now, moving to more back details, the back is going to be quite a lot broader at the top than it is getting closer to the bottom, but then where it starts, that's going to be where the waist is, but then where the hips are, it'll come out a little bit. You won't see this change quite as much with men as you will with women, as their waists tend to be a little bit wider. This isn't the case in all situations, of course, but it is kind of the genetic predisposition. So we're just going to kind of briefly draw this back. We'll define a few muscles, and then we'll move on to a female back and kind of some differences with that maybe. Sometimes the backs in some of the sketches by the great masters of old, they also have, they look a bit odd sometimes. Like, even if we look back at the Da Vinci sketch that we did of the chest muscles, like, if I were to actually do it correctly, there would have been a big dip on this part. And we don't really see that nowadays. So there may have been some biological changes between now and then, or it's just different lifestyles, I suppose. So there are going to be a few differences between kind of what we see nowadays and what we see in the past. But these are generally really good references for kind of understanding where muscles are going to be. And that's why I'm choosing it, because one of the best ways to make a sketch look better is to add really good shading. And that gets more and more feasible when you have knowledge of where the muscles are. And there we go. So there's kind of our figure. It does look a little awkward though. I'm going to move just this section here over to the side. There we go. Okay, so that should be a little bit better. All right. Now it actually looks a little bit awkward. Yeah, we'll move it back, I suppose, or at least back most of the way. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. So there we go. That's kind of where our character's back is going to be sitting. It does look a little bit awkward, a little bit wavy, but that's how it is shown in the image. But if we add just a little bit of detail, we can make it look a little bit less awkward. So, one important part to note is going to be kind of the straight line that'll be going down your back. Well, not straight, but just the line that generally goes down your back. So we're just going to quickly draw that. For this figure, it follows this line. Okay, there we go. So there's kind of our line there. Yeah, and it should be good. I'm gonna move this part quickly. Sorry. There we go. Now it might look a little bit less awkward. Yeah, it's never bad to just quickly go back and kind of readjust some things that you already put in your image. I'm going to redraw this line. I don't like how it showed up, so redrawing things is never really a bad thing. Plus, it just gives you more practice, so really it's almost a good thing. All right. There we go. There's kind of the straight line that's going to be following your back. Now, it won't be this defined in most drawings that you're going to be doing, but it will generally kind of sink into your back, and so you're going to be wanting to put a little bit more shading in kind of the area encompassing that. So instead of making it a super broad line, I think if we were going to go back and kind of erase a little portion of it so that it's a little bit lighter, and if we were just to kind of to go back and kind of shade in that area, it might be a good idea. Or if we were to shade one side more than the other, like say that this side, like we could shade that side more than the other, it's just a good splitting point. Just to kind of split it into sections. So we'll kind of leave it kind of like this for now. I'll do a little bit of shading kind of on this side. Okay, there we go. So when shading muscles, you're not really going to be wanting to put line where the muscle is and shading it. That's not generally what you're wanting to do all the time. Generally, you're just wanting to kind of know where the muscles are, and then you shade them. So I'm just going to kind of outline where some of the muscles are, just through a little bit of shading, and it'll just keep looking better and better as we keep going. So we're going to have just a little bit of muscle here, and just a little chain of muscles kind of following down where the spine is. A few muscles kind of in here. There's a muscle coming down from there, coming over here, kind of down in the rib area. Another little bit of muscle coming up through here. So there we go, there's a little bit of muscle. Like zooming out, you can already see just a little bit. It does look a little bit scratchy and whatnot, so yeah. But just if we keep adding, stick to it, then it'll eventually keep looking better and better. So just adding a tiny little bit of arm detail so that we don't finish and the back looks detailed and the arm doesn't, because that just makes things look awkward. There we go, just a little bit done there. A little bit on the bicep. We'll just draw a little bit of muscular definition on the deltoids. I mean, why not? There's no harm from it. Yeah, again, this is going to be a little bit more muscular figure than kind of the average person. I'm getting that everyone's already assuming that, just wanted to note. Alright. I'm going to shade this side a little bit, because it is just kind of facing a little bit away. It has the arm in the way and whatnot, so just a little bit of shading there is going to be nice. Coming in from this area, when you see an arc kind of like this, what you're going to kind of assume is that this stuff up here is kind of just blocking a little bit of the light source. And so you're going to go in and kind of just do a little bit of shading, kind of coming in, getting lighter as you go. And so like as we zoom out, you can start to see a little bit more of the muscular definition that I was talking about earlier. So that's always a good thing. We'll add that kind of coming down, because this is kind of going towards the glute area, glutes, gluteus maximus muscles, and yeah. And that's where this kind of line would lead if we were drawing that low. We're not going to draw that low. We'll save that kind of stuff for another video, just because I want to drag it out. There we go, a bit of muscular definition there. What you can do is just finish one part of the back and then like finish this entire side of the back before going on to the other side. You can do that if you want. But sometimes when dealing with muscle and kind of shading them, it is better to do one side than to do the other and just to use one side as a reference. Typically when you're doing something like eyes, you want to be going step by step, like with each other. You want to do the left eye at the same time that you do the right eye. And if you do those together, then it'll make them look symmetrical. When dealing with things like back muscles and just muscles in general, though, you can kind of break that rule a little bit, because eyes, they're almost always going to be the same. Like the pupil and iris and everything, they're always going to be the same. You're going to be having them be the same size and whatnot. Typically, though, muscle, though, when they're in different positions, they're going to be, well, they look different. So yeah, I'm going to go through just this kind of center line is looking a little bit sloppy. I'm going to just kind of define where it is. Yeah. Sorry if you think my sketches look a bit sloppy because of the hatching method. I would be going through and blurring on paper, but yeah, we're just going to keep this method for now. Alright, so just moving on to the kind of the other side of the back. We're going to have this side be quite a bit more shaded. We're going to be kind of assuming that light is coming in from this direction at quite a steep angle, which is why this part of the, like the center of the back is a little bit shaded, because this stuff here is going to be popping out and then slowly going on an angle that way. And so it is going to be a little bit darker in that area. If I want to do it more realistically, I'd probably add a few strands coming out that are just slightly shaded, kind of like your mid-tones that you'd have. I would have that, but right now I think that it would just make the drawing messier. So I'm not going to add those, but note that they will actually be there in real life. So moving over to the other side, we are going to kind of start with just a little bit of kind of detail on the deltoids. So just going to do a little bit of shading over here. And kind of around the deltoid, I suppose. Yeah, sorry if I don't know all of the muscle names perfectly and everything. I'm not an expert on what muscles are named. I'm not a doctor. Alright. So I'm just gonna add very, very, very light midtones to kind of this going into the bicep part. Just very, very light midtones. Okay, now we're going to be dealing a little bit more with some back muscle. So we're going to have just a kind of a column of muscle around this point. We'll have it be kind of dark around this area, have them be very lightly mid-toned around. I'm going to make a bigger one down here. Split that in it's kind of two pieces. Again, put midtones in it. There we go. We're going to make this part dark because it's going to be kind of curving away from the light source. So we don't really want it to be super light. And yeah, if we zoom out, we can kind of see just a little bit more of what we're talking about with kind of muscular definition and whatnot. Alright. Just going to make this kind of transition just a little bit smoother around this area. Alright. There we go. Now that'll look a little bit better. I'm going to add some kind of mid-tones around here. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, I'm sorry if I don't always have something to say on exactly what I'm doing at the moment. Just there are a lot of things, but at the same time, lots of things can't really be commented on. Again, as I mentioned, for this kind of arc part of the back, we're just going to quickly go in and shade a little bit there. Kind of just coming in, let it fade away. Now this entire part of the back is going to be arcing away, so that is why we're kind of adding just mid-tones around that area. All right. Getting down to here, we're going to have this kind of a little fold in the skin around there. Go back over. Another kind of fold in the skin up here. Now, if you notice, it's kind of parallel to kind of these that we did here, except those are going to be kind of stretched, and so you see kind of the definition in them, while over here they're kind of folding over. Yeah, so the folding over right here, it's quite important to know about, so we're going to talk about that in just a sec. Yeah, I think we're pretty well done for this sketch. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now that we've done the sketch, we're going to kind of analyze some specific notes that we can take on the back. I'm just going to make a little bit of highlight kind of around the edges where all the lines are, just so that we don't kind of mistake our outline as being shading. Anyways, okay, so we'll just quickly go along and grab some of the outlines that I think are a bit weakly done. Okay. So there we go. Outline's looking a little bit better. Again, you're not going to be having really bold outlines like this in real life. You're just going to kind of be having the shading. So I'm just doing that right now just to analyze a little bit more of the shape of the back so that we can start making notes on it. Okay, so kind of some notes that we can take kind of just regarding the back and how it's kind of structured. So what we can kind of notice, again, some notes that I already did, kind of wider at the top, not quite as much kind of in the waist area, and then wider again at the hips. So that's an important thing to know. Now, another thing that we're going to be noticing is if you take a look at the back, it's kind of going to be arching kind of in this direction. The arch, of course, isn't quite that dramatic, but if you take a look at it, all the kind of skin and muscle on this side is kind of like being compressed together, while the muscle out here is being stretched, and so that's where you can see some of the key differences in here. Like, for example, in this area that we were just analyzing right here, you see that there are folds, and so we added these nice lines on them just to kind of show that there are folds in the skin, which are going to be happening when you compress skin together. While here, there aren't any solid lines. It's just the shading that we've done. So it's just kind of just showing that there are going to be dips in between muscle. And so that's an important thing to note, that when you're going to be compressing, or when your back is arcing in any way, there will be some compression, which may cause folds in the skin, and there will be stretches, which is just going to be causing a little bit of just definition. And that's what I'm kind of calling this shading over here. I'm just going to be calling that muscular definition. So the line that's going to be going down the back, it's mostly going to be following the spine. So yeah, if we were to draw out the line boldly again, it would be along here, and it would go down towards the bottom. So there we go. Just kind of what we were looking for. And yeah, so that's just a couple quick notes on back. Generally, I think that going and looking up a reference would be a really good idea when you're going to be drawing a back, especially looking them up in specific poses that might match your pose to a degree. I'm just going to go through and blur some of this to see if that might actually help it look a little bit less messy. So we'll see. Yeah, not quite sure about it. Yeah, no. Well, we'll just leave it where it is. I think it's fine. So yeah, so that's kind of how we're going to be doing like muscular backs. Yeah, sorry if I'm not explaining to the best degree or where specific muscles are. Just there are many, many, many muscles in the human body, and so I don't want to be going over hundreds of little tiny notes on how to be drawing back muscles. So I'm just going to be kind of drawing sketches and then kind of analyzing them and seeing what we can draw from them. and also this kind of back of the spine part, you are going to want to pay close attention to that, because that's going to be kind of determining where your back is going. You're not going to be having like you wouldn't have it coming out here and then coming back in, because it's not following the middle of the back. You want it to be following the middle of the back. So yeah, that is going to be an important thing. You want the spine to look like it's going in a natural direction. Otherwise, that's going to throw off your entire figure and how it looks. The spine it follows a very natural shape. So if it isn't following that shape, it's not going to be very good. So moving on, we're going to be kind of doing a different style of back now. We're going to be doing a female back, and so it's going to be a little bit less muscular, at least this one, and it's going to be kind of in a little bit of a different position. It's going to be angled a little bit, so this will help us just get a little bit more variety with what we're drawing. So we're going to, no, not like that. We're going to have it kind of start like this and follow a nice natural curve out. And then for the hips, it's going to arc. Oh, not like that. It's going to arc back in. So there we go. We'll have the hips there. And then kind of working way down towards the thigh. Same thing on the other side. We're going to have this still a little bit like this. Little tiny fold in skin, kind of in the area where the arm's going to be. And then nice curve down here to the waist, where it's then going to come right back out. So there we go. This is kind of what we're going to be covering. This is what we have to work with. Now just to give this back a little bit of context, because it does look a little bit awkward right now because we don't have more drawn. We're just going to draw in a couple of pieces. So this is kind of the arm. And the arm's going to kind of come down like this and go to the front. And we will have kind of this arm on this side coming in like this. And our character is going to be leaning on an object. We're not going to draw the object in because, of course, we're going to be focusing on the back. But, yeah. We just want to draw in a little bit of extra detail. I'm not going to have the deltoids be quite that profound. This tiny little definition. I'm going to have it coming up there, coming up here. It does look a little bit awkward and wide, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. Nothing wrong with it. There we go. Quite a lot better. Okay. Now let's get to kind of defining some of the regions that we're going to be working on. So, an important thing we have on this one that we don't really have in the other one is where the arm is going to be meeting kind of the back. Now, in some places it's going to have something like this, where it kind of folds into it. And so that's going to be kind of important, especially for this specific figure. Just going to, again, do it in just hatching. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing any cross-hatching, just normal hatching. Sorry if some people don't like how I hatch. I find it nice for sketches, so that's why I use it. Alright. So there we go. It's going to be a little bit darker, kind of here where the armpit is. And we're going to keep going. So, just something that we noticed in the last sketch. We're going to kind of draw out where kind of the line in the back is, because as we noted, that's kind of an important part. We want it to follow a nice natural curve. And yeah, so for this specific figure, it's not going to be quite as defined. We're kind of just going to have it kind of be that line. That is the back line. All right. So We aren't going to be having as much muscular definition, so we're going to kind of use this kind of lighter tones for this back. Coming down, following this line. That line is going to be splitting what you're wanting to do. It's going to split your shading, which is a good thing. Just kind of lets you know where everything is. Alright. So even though some backs may not be terribly well defined where their muscle is, that doesn't mean that you're not going to draw no muscle at all, because everyone does have muscle. It doesn't matter if your specific character has fat on them. Generally, everyone has muscle, and so it is still going to be rather important to add that muscle. All right. So we work our way down to the hip. This shading is mostly going to be based on the curvature of the figure, and not quite as much on where specific muscles are. And we're going to have this kind of curving into the glute area. But then again, we'll focus on that a different day. Just going to do a little bit of here, kind of leading into this arc in the waist. Again, I'm going to add just a little bit of shading there, seeping in a little bit, kind of meeting up with this shading going along there. So there we go, that's pretty good. Just going to add a little bit of shading on this part of the arm, and probably just a little bit on that part of the back as well. As you're going further forward, the arm is going to be kind of looming over to the front, so you're not going to be adding shading onto the back. And yeah. So there we go. That's pretty good. Alright, now just a little bit of muscles in the back. I have a muscle kind of in this general region, so we'll just leave a little bit of a highlight kind of up where that is. And I have another one up here, kind of in the trapezius area. I'm going to leave another small one right around here. And yeah, I'm going to add one more here. And then this kind of starts going into the path that we were following before, kind of leading down to that line in the back, the middle back. Alright. So there we go. That's kind of mostly what we were trying to accomplish. A little bit kind of around here. I'm going to add just a very tiny little bit kind of here to the kind of the middle area, because the back's not going to be curved perfectly. And yeah, a little bit of curvature here. Now the center of the back, it is going to be kind of leading into the center of the glutes, so you are going to be wanting a line drawn, well, not a line, just a little bit of shading kind of done from there, kind of leading into the back. So just zooming out, we can see just a little bit of kind of what we're talking about with this kind of figure. Even though the back is kind of just diagonal, kind of just going in more of that kind of a direction, we can still see some similarities. Up here at the top, it's wider than it is kind of here, and then it is at the bottom. So that's an important thing. Even though the body is tilted, it still does kind of follow more of a natural curve, and so that is also incredibly important. It may look a little bit awkward because we haven't added all the shading for here and for the legs and for the glutes and everything, but yeah, saving that for later. But yeah, that's kind of in general how you're wanting to do backs. You are going to be wanting to look at lots of references so that you know where all of the muscles are, and then just kind of do a little bit of shading around the muscle. Make sure that the inside of the muscle, you kind of have it highlighted. If you want to, I wouldn't quite recommend this. You can go to a lighter color and kind of, not quite to that opacity. You can kind of go in, kind of brighten up exactly where you want on your muscles. You can do that if you want. I wouldn't specifically recommend it. I don't normally do this, so yeah. But some people might find it nice if you're doing kind of a more realistic back, and so you're actually not going for a sketch, you're not going for kind of the hatching method, and you're going for like a fully done back. I would recommend highlights. Highlights are going to be your friend for this. So yeah, just kind of looking at the backs. I'm going to bring the other one in and move it over. Or we'll move that one over, move this one over. Okay, so just kind of looking at these two backs, what we can see, the similarities between them, and what we're going to kind of generally want to do for backs in general. Get back to black. Okay, so center line in the back. That's an incredibly important part. It's going to just follow the spine all the way down. You want it to follow a nice natural curve. So that's kind of the first note. Top of the back is going to be quite a lot, or at least a little wider than kind of where the waistline is, and then the hips are going to be wider than the waistline. The top line and the bottom line are going to be, well, they might be the same, they might be different. It all depends on the specific figure that you're drawing. And yeah, that's pretty much it with drawing backs. So yeah, quite complex. Sorry if this felt more of a tutorial of how to kind of quickly sketch these two sketches, but yeah, I hope that some of the commentary was useful. So yeah, so thank you everybody so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.